Okay, in this video we're going to show you how to use the cloning and healing tools in Photoshop. Now these tools are again available I think in Photoshop Elements, so if you haven't got or can't afford Photoshop and you've got Photoshop Elements, then you can use these tools in that. So let's start with the healing brush, which is one of my favourite tools, and I'm going to use it specifically for this image here, and I'll show you why in a second. You're probably seeing already there's lots and lots of dust spots on there. Now I'll explain what happened to this image first very quickly. I was cleaning my camera before a wedding, and unbeknown to me, the blower brush that you use without a brush to blow the dust off a sensor had been in my bag, and it had been attracting dust in Spain, and that dust had been getting hot, and it had turned to water, and it had turned to grease. So when I actually cleaned my sensor with a blower brush, it actually sprayed more dust on it than I've ever seen in my life, and this is a kind of resulting image. I couldn't believe it. It took a long time to clean it, but we did get it clean in the end. But now I'm left with an image like this that I need to clean, and this is probably quite a good stock image, so you know it's something I want to work on and actually get ready for selling. So the only way to do this, if I go Control-Alt-0 to 100%, so this is what reviewers would actually look at an image as, and also it's good to see how it would print. You can see there's a lot of dust on there that I need to get rid of. Now if I was to use the clone brush, the clone stamp actually makes an exact replica of what it sees, whatever you choose. You can choose up here the diameter of the clone brush, and I want it really to be about the same size as the specks of dust, or maybe a little bit bigger. So if I just go to about that size, that's about the right size for getting rid of dust. But if you're using the clone tool to get rid of dust, things like this, you've got to be aware that the background is actually graded. You can see the sky goes from dark to light from each corner. So if I was to use this brush, you actually have to press Alt, which creates a target shape, and you click the area that you want to clone. So if I was to clone a bit of the sky up here where it's darker, and then take my finger off and then left click and start cloning over a piece of dust down here, you can see the sky is too dark, so it's not doing a very good job, and it's making an exact copy of wherever the spot is. So let's just get rid of those, because if you wanted to do this properly with the cloning tool, you'd have to pick an area of sky that's exactly the same as where the dust is. So I would take somewhere from here, hold the Alt key down, left click, take the target spot, move over to the piece of dust, and then just paint. And you can see there we've done a better job. And you can keep doing that over all the dust spots. Just as long as you get the same shade of background to clone from, you should be okay. But the way I like to do things is it's a bit more of a safeguard. We actually use the healing brush, which is brilliant. Again, pick the same kind of size brush, and I always choose the hardness at 0%. So it's very, very soft brush, and it will blend in very well. The spacing I've got at 25%. It doesn't matter too much, just as long as the diameter is good and the hardness, for me, is set to 0. And I'll show you how that works. Again, well, now I can actually take a reading from the dark sky, and you see the difference here. If I press Alt, left click, and take a reading from the dark sky, and then come down to the light sky, clone over the brush, you see it goes dark, but as soon as I let my finger go, it blends, and it takes information from the surrounding area and will actually blend it perfectly. It's fantastic, a really good tool. But generally I would still take a reading from the sky, clone over the tool, and then just keep doing it. And you can see here how easy it is. Once I've got one reading from the sky, if I take an average here, which is between the light and dark, I can then just happily go through and clone just by left clicking the mouse every single bit of dust, and it blends perfectly. There's no need to keep taking different sources for your cloning or your healing brush. And then I can just go through here, and you can see they're just disappearing very easily, without any having to right click. But I'm just going to show you something. If we get a space here that is actually close to an object like this, if I was to just click on it, you see what happens. It takes some reading from the area and drags in part of that post, so it doesn't look very good at all. There's two ways of combating this. You can either go in really close, hold the Alt key down, and put the target exactly over the line of the object, and left click, and then come down to where the dust spot is and align it exactly perfectly again by holding down the Control key, aligning it exactly the same about there, and then click, and you've got exactly the same, and just clone out, and it disappears without affecting this. Now the second way of doing it is reverting back to the clone tool, and we go right down to a very small diameter, take an area from around and then just clone it away, getting close up to the edge, and that's done as well. So bear in mind that when you're using either of these brushes, especially the healing tool, if you get close to another object that hasn't got a uniform light around it, you're going to have to go in a bit closer and use a different tool or a different technique. So just bear that in mind. But the healing tool, again, we can just go wasping round and just get rid of all those dust spots, and we end up with a super clean image. Now I'm not going to do it all here, but I'm hoping that you're seeing this so I can take a reading from there, left click, bye dust spot, and it's perfect. You can't see that we've been there at all. So that is one of the best tools that you can do for if you see dust on your sensor and you've got dust on your images, then this is one of the quickest ways of actually getting rid of those using the healing brush. You can also use it for getting rid of spots on someone's face or blemishes on the skin. You can get rid of kind of blemishes on furniture or roads or anything. Anywhere where there's a uniform light around the outside where the tool can actually take a reading and blend it all in perfectly and seamlessly, then it's a good one to use. But for anything else, which we're going to show you next, it wouldn't do so well. But for getting rid of dust spots, it's absolutely brilliant. And you can see here we can just go through the whole image very quickly and just zap out all of those spots. So I should end up with a relatively clean image, as you can see there. That's not too bad, that I can then upload for a stock agency or even print off. So that's the first one, using the healing tool, which is brilliant. Now here we go. This is somewhere where we can't use the healing tool. I'm going to use this as an example, and I want to get rid of all of the logos like the Honda and the XR there, because I want to upload this as a stock photo, assuming I'd got a model release from the guy here. So let's say I want to upload it as a stock photo, and I've got all of this writing on here, which isn't acceptable. You have to get rid of any branding. If I use the healing tool here and try and heal away this lettering, look what happens. It kind of smudges and blends in. It doesn't look right. It's kind of looking a bit dirty, and the colours aren't blending. It just doesn't look right at all. So it's not the right tool to use at all for that job. So if we revert back and then select the clone tool, which, as you saw before, just leaves an exact replica of where you're taking your reading from, it's a lot easier to use. So if we zoom right in to the lettering here, and now we're going to make a slightly bigger brush, and we're going to take a reading from this area here, right on one of those dots, and then place it over the dot nearby, and then start cloning. And you can see there it's creating quite a good replica of what's behind. Now this kind of job takes quite a while, and it can be quite time consuming, but if it's something you're going to sell, then it's worth taking that time. I've done this on many stock photos, and they've gone on to sell quite well, so it's worth the effort. And you can actually get rid of all of those, and then when you get to a grey area here, you just take an area of uniform grey, and then just clone, take a reading, clone it away, take a reading here, and try and keep the if there's any detail, such as noise or these kind of very tiny details here, try and keep those in, because you don't want it to look too smooth, because then it will start to look unnatural. So you try and keep in all of that kind of detail that's already there in other parts. So you try and clone that away, and when you get to a straight point here, I would again put the target right over the line, take a click, move along, and try and get it exactly the same position, so you can then just zip along the line like that and get the image looking the same. Now, because we've got a bit of dirt up here, I would then take a new reading from around the dirty part and just blend it in as best I can. So again, it can be quite time consuming, but it's well worth it. So you can see there we've already got rid of a bit of the logos and everything, and when you zoom out it actually looks quite good. If it does look obvious, like they're definitely cloned, there's like triplicates of things, then just zap those away, and then it'll look a bit more realistic when you zoom out. And again, with the seat here, you've got shades, you've got dark shade, light shade, so you want to make sure that you're going along, keeping the same shade of tones along the seat. So you take a reading from the back here and go along, make sure, always looking to make sure that it looks natural and it looks kind of as it should, as though it didn't have the lettering. So we take a reading from there in the dark bit and just keep slowly cloning it away like so. Now if you end up with areas where you've got multiple kind of clone artifacts, if you like, that look a bit obvious, then what you can do is then take the healing brush, which blends it nicely, take an area where there's some detail, and then just clone or heal some of that detail back into the seat there, so it doesn't look too flat and bland. So there we've added a bit of detail back into the seat, so it looks like it's genuine, and we can do that a little bit more there. So a mixture of those tools and a bit of hard work and zooming right in, you can actually get rid of all of this all these logos and lettering. When it's a dark area like that, it's quite easy, but you can get rid of everything quite easily, although it's time consuming, and you'd end up with an image that you can obviously use for selling for stock or for commercial use, and again, as long as you've got a model release. But just make sure that the lines flow, that the colours flow, and it all blends in well, and when you zoom out it actually looks natural. It doesn't look as though, you know, you've just haplessly cloned in any old kind of object. See here, I'm going along with the seam and making it flow right to the end, so that when I zoom out, that fold in the clothing is still there. It still looks natural and obvious. So we'll just take that along to the end. So you have to keep taking readings just to make sure that it looks okay. You see there, we've still kept the fold in because we're taking readings all around it all the time and cloning things out. I've gone a bit too far to the edge there. When you do get to the edges here, it's worth going in very, very close, getting a very, very small brush, and then just working upwards, taking a reading from the edge and then working your way upwards, trying to kind of keep it as realistic as you can. But it takes a bit of artwork as well. You may need some you know, a slight touch and a bit of a handy artwork or a bit of skill there, so you can actually just keep it looking natural and just paint over any lettering that's there. So we can just get rid of all that. If it goes a bit darker, it doesn't matter, as long as when you zoom out it looks natural. So we'll just keep going up there, just do this last bit and zoom out to show you kind of how it looks. Let's just do those bits, kind of blend that in so the fold stops there. You can always darken it and make it look better, finer detail later on, but we should have got rid of all that lettering on the back of his trousers there, and zoom out and it looks quite natural. And you would do that over the entire bike, and then once you've done it, you've got rid of all the logos, all the lettering that you don't want on there, and you've ended up with an image that you can actually sell. So that way, or this kind of photo is where you'd use the clone tool rather than the healing brush, but the healing brush can go in and kind of just add a bit of finer detail later on. But those are the two brushes. They are probably the best brushes in Photoshop for a lot of work that you might need to do. For instance, if there was a bit of rubbish on the floor here, I could easily clone or heal it out. If there's something in the background that's distracting, I can clone it out and then use the healing brush to blend in with all the foliage in the background. There's multiple uses for it, and it's well worth learning both of those tools to use on your image, because you know, it can actually add a whole new dimension and really make your images pop if you get rid of all these distractions. So I really hope that helps. Get practicing with those tools, and thank you very much, and we'll see you on the next video.